All right. So, digestive system physiology, right? When we're looking at it, our goals today, we want to be able to identify the organs of our digestive system. So you do want to know a little bit about like what each organ is and what they do, the process by which those materials are going to move through our digestive tract, the anatomy of our stomach and how our stomach works when it comes to digesting things, as well as like our small intestine and large intestine, the anatomic characteristics of the small intestine, and a few of the hormones that are related to allowing digestion to happen. We'll talk a little bit about like the pancreas, the liver, and your large intestine and what their roles are, and then how like these specific nutrients actually behave in the body, which is sort of the most important part. And that's actually what we'll get to at the very end. We'll be talking a little bit about our macronutrients and our micronutrients, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, and all that fun stuff. And then the most important of all, we'll talk a little bit about water. Yesterday, we talked a lot about hydrolysis. And so, water is obviously a very, very important part of digestion. So, giving you just a quick little overview here, we know that like digestion is the process of like not only chemical breakdown, but also a little bit of like mechanical breakdown, right? And so when we have mechanical and chemical breakdown of foods, we're going to get everything broken down into its tiniest little pieces, right? And that process is what we refer to as digestion. So your digestive system, I always like to start with like a little definition in the overview here, but it's the system that is in the body responsible for mechanical and chemical breakdown of foods, and it's responsible for the absorption of nutrients by your body's cells. So when we talk about digestion, it's called the digestive system, right? And obviously that's a part of what it does. It does digest everything. But another really important part of your digestive system is also absorption. In fact, that's really the whole reason we even have a digestive system, is so that we can actually absorb foods into our bloodstream. Because here's the thing, and this is my favorite thing to talk about, because it's kind of a goofy concept, but my favorite thing to mention during the digestive system. So here's what's funny. Your digestive system is inside like your outer shell, but it is not part of your inner body. Like it's not inside what your body considers to be your body, if that makes sense. Basically,
no, can you repeat it again?
I got you. So basically, think of yourself as a human donut, right? So I'm going to pull up a picture of a donut here. So when we look at a picture of our donut, right, when you look at it, there's the hole in the center, right? So if I were to take like a thumbtack and drop it into this little hole right here, that thumbtack is not inside the donut. It's like sitting in the donut hole, but it's not in the donut, right? Well, that is exactly how your digestive system is. Your digestive tract, right, your alimentary canal is what it's called, is an uninterrupted tube all the way from start to finish out the other end. So what your digestive system's job is, even though it's like, inside, right? But like, I could take something and put it in my mouth right now. It doesn't mean that it has passed into my bloodstream. So it's not officially inside my body, right? Like the area between here and here, that's my inside environment. But your digestive system, even your stomach, is the outside environment. It's kind of like your skin, actually. It's on the outside. It's made of very different tissue, obviously. So that's what I mean when I say you are a human donut, if that makes sense. And so the way it works, right, the reason for that is because there's a lot of things that we eat that have a lot of bacteria on them. No matter what, I mean, like you guys are going to have some type of lunch or dinner today. that food is covered in bacteria, you know. It could have a virus on it. It could, you know, have all kinds of stuff on it. You know, the world is absolutely covered in germs, which is, you know, a totally scary thing to say in 2021. But but like it's, you know, it's true, right? There's little bits of bacteria and germs everywhere. But luckily, your digestive system, you know, it for the most part destroys most of those germs because you do have stomach acid, and that stomach acid is going to kill most things. But you know what? Some bacteria is actually pretty stubborn, and so it survives pretty well. But here's the thing, it doesn't stay in your body very long. You know, food moves through your digestive tract in a matter of, you know, several hours. So because it's not really in your body for all that long of a time, for the most part, that bacteria gets carried right out of your body. And that's a good thing because we don't want to get that bacteria in, or that virus or what parasite or whatever it happens to be. We don't want that to get into our bloodstream, because then it would be passing from, again, the outside environment to our inside environment, right? It would be actually in your body proper. That's, by the way, and this is going to be a kind of a gross way to explain this. By the way, we're talking about digestion today. It's going to get gross. Like, everybody be prepared. But like, you know, when you're, you know, you'll see it dogs all the time. Like dogs will sometimes like deposit their breakfast on the lawn and then they'll go eat that. Like, they're like, I don't know, I guess I'm still hungry. And they will, you know, eat their own, like, you know, stuff off the lawn, which is pretty gross. But your dog doesn't ever seem to get really all that sick from it. You know, it doesn't really like, you know, cause them too much harm. Well, you know what's funny about that? The reason dogs can get away with that, or animals in the wild, you know, which are eating like raw carcasses and stuff, you know, the reason animals in the wild can get away with that is because their digestive systems are even shorter than ours are. You know, we only keep food in our body for a couple of hours. So that bacteria, those parasites, those viruses, they don't really have time to take hold. And with like animals in the wild, it's even more true because a dog's digestive system's only about 3.5, 4 hours. So that's, you know, why they can get away with stuff like that. We can't get away with stuff like that. That'll make us very sick. So anyway, that's the whole process of digestion. Because here's the thing, we got to be able to get food. You know, I've got to be able to get, you know, a full bowl of spinach small enough that it will actually pass from the outside environment, which is in my digestive tract, to my inside environment, which is my bloodstream, right? And that means that it's got to be able to pass through the walls of my entire body, right? It's got to be able to pass through a wall. Imagine something that has to get so small that it can pass through your skin, right? If you were to get it small enough that it can actually pass into your skin, you would absorb it, right? That's the process of absorption. Does that make sense, everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Questions? Feeling good? All right. So the organs of your digestive system, their job is to carry out either mechanical digestion or chemical digestion. That's their main job. So we're going to divide your digestive system. We're going to divide it into a couple different divisions. There's going to be what is called the alimentary canal, and that is this little tube right here, right? This is your alimentary canal. So this tube, this first part of it is your esophagus, but then your stomach is right here. That's part of the alimentary canal. Your small intestine, which is this big long one right here, that's part of the alimentary canal, and your large intestine as well. So your entire digestive tract, its other name is alimentary canal. It's an 8-meter long, which is pretty freaking long, tube that passes through your thoracic and abdominal cavity. So it's basically just passing through your thorax area. And then it also has a bunch of accessory organs which are attached to it. So if I look back at this picture again, you can see there's your liver that's attached to your digestive tract, but it's not necessarily part of it. There's your gallbladder, which is right underneath it. So those are all of your accessory organs. An accessory organ's job is basically to excrete or squirt stuff into the digestive tract itself. And that makes it easier. You know, for instance, your saliva glands, right? They're not necessarily part of the digestive tract, but they excrete saliva into your mouth, and that makes it easier to chew food. So our main functions here, and you can see we got them all kind of laid out in our notes here. Your main functions of your entire digestive system are going to be ingestion, which is the process of getting food into the body, propulsion, which is moving stuff through the canal, mechanical processing, which is chewing, right? Breaking stuff apart physically, digestion, which is chemical processing, right? Using acids and salts and things like that to break foods apart with chemicals, secretion, which is like your saliva glands, and then the most important one, absorption, which is actually allowing nutrients to pass from the outside environment of your digestive tract to the inside environment of your bloodstream. They're going to be able to pass through that wall. And then lastly, excretion, which is the pooping. So that's how we get all that stuff out of the body.
One question, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you say about the propulsion? What is it?
Oh, it's just moving stuff for like, you know, when you swallow and you feel the food travel, that's
okay.
Propulsion is to propel something forward.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So the alimentary canal, like I said, is an 8-meter long muscular tube, right? And it's got all kinds of different little pieces. So here's kind of an interesting way to lay that out, right? So here's like, if this would be your mouth, it would travel down, you know, there's your saliva glands. It would travel down your throat into your stomach, and then it would travel through your small intestine. Then it would get to the large intestine, and then it would get out of the body, right? It would make its exit. And you can see like, here's a little accessory organ that, you know, the pancreas can excrete little things to help break down carbohydrates. Your liver excretes some stuff to help break down fats, and your gallbladder stores it. And then your cecum here, which is part of your large intestine, that's in charge of like excreting things like mucus and other stuff to help like digestion at the end here. So first thing we're going to start by talking about is we're going to look at the idea of ingestion, right? So this PowerPoint's broken down into sections regarding like, you know, the roles of your digestive system, which by now I think you guys understand is not just about digesting. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about the ingestion part of things here at the beginning. Digestion begins in your mouth, actually. So, you know, yesterday I mentioned, you know, we were talking about disaccharides, right? We were talking about like simple sugar molecules, right? So, or we were talking about actually carbohydrates in general. We were talking about lots of sugar molecules. So I'm going to go ahead and draw kind of a complicated carbohydrate here. I mean, this is a fairly simple carbohydrate. This would be what's called an oligosaccharide. But basically, if we take a look at this, right, you know, this is held together with an oxygen bond, and then, you know, maybe it's held together with another oxygen bond here. You know, it forms this big long chain. I could put another one over here, you know, and I could connect that with a big long chain of oxygen. So what we've got right here is a slightly complex carbohydrate. By the way, I can look up a much better version. You know, here's a much better looking, you know, much better drawing. But you can see like, you know, all these, I don't even have the right shape, you know, thing up here because I don't have it available to me in Paint. But it's a lot easier than trying to watch me draw a hexagon. Trust me, I promise you. So this is what's called a polysaccharide. Poly for the word many, saccharide coming from the word sugar, right? So this is a many sugar molecule, meaning it's got lots of chains on it, right? So this is also a polysaccharide because there's more than one, right? Well, there's more than two actually, and that makes it many. So digestion actually begins in your mouth because solid food particles are cut down mechanically with your teeth, right? chewing is going to break up some of the food. So you're going to take something very large and you're going to break it down into something very small. But you're also going to mix it with your saliva. And what's really cool is your saliva has all these really cool materials in it. So saliva's job is to be secreted by the glands that are going to help, chemically break down your food even further. So chewing breaks stuff into small pieces, but your spit actually chemically breaks stuff down as well. Bet you didn't know that our spit was kind of like the spit from Aliens, right? You see those movies where it's like, and it burns through stuff. Yours kind of does that too. It just does it on a much very smaller scale. So we actually do break down foods chemically with our saliva. It is actually going to moisten your food, and it's going to begin digesting only carbohydrates. The only thing that saliva really breaks down is carbs. It's not very good at breaking down the other materials. And so let me see if it's there. There we go. Now, this is all, by the way, under the control of your parasympathetic nervous system. Don't worry about that term for right now. I'm going to teach you that term later. But basically, think of your nervous system as under control or automatic. You've got two different versions. Your saliva is under the automatic part of your nervous system. And it's also under the calming, resting versions of the automatic stuff. So what's kind of funny is, like, if I had you guys right now, if I said, everybody think of, I want you to, imagine, close your eyes and imagine that you are eating a really, delicious, but salty, greasy, but wonderful slice of pizza. Like it's got, pepperoni, it's salty, it's greasy, it's amazing, it's the world's great, it's your favorite pizza from wherever it is you're going. I don't know if you like greasy pizza, whatever. But like, imagine that really dense. Did everybody in the call right now, or at least some of you guys, did you start salivating a little bit? Did you start, like, your mouth start watering a little?
Hell yeah.
What's that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right? It's funny because it's the I think the salty is really what does it. I got two questions. Let me get Charlie first. What's up, Charlie?
Oh no, I just like the little, like, raising my hand thing.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. Isaiah, same thing, or do you have a question?
What about the opposite sensation?
So what do you mean by that sensation? Do you mean the opposite part of your nervous system?
Yeah, because you say of course, when you like something, you have the sensation that starts with saliva. But when you don't like that, or some, for example, I don't like pizza. When you say grossly, and it's like, oh my God, no, I don't want it.
Sure, yeah. So that's also under the control of your autonomic nervous system. So if you think something is really appetizing, your mouth will start watering when you think about it. But if you think something is really gross, your body will actually make other processes that turn your digestive system off, because your body thinks, like, I'm not eating that poison, and so it's like, I'm not bringing that into me. You keep that out there, And it's funny because that's all part of what we call your autonomic or automatic nervous system. You don't really have any control over it, That's why a lot of times our clients, honestly, that's why a lot of people struggle with eating, is because, they'll be walking along and they'll see a package of Oreos on the counter or something. And then their brain will go, Oreos, I love those. And it'll start salivating. And then when that starts happening, the rest of their body goes on autopilot. And the next thing they know, they've eaten the whole sleeve, So that's your autonomic nervous system. It's all the stuff that happens really without your control. So that is going to secrete your saliva. Now, in your saliva, there is this material, and this is one of our key vocabulary terms here. It is going to secrete this material called salivary amylase, okay? So salivary amylase is an enzyme. Oh, hold on, I can hear somebody. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question.
Okay.
Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? Just make sure it's muted when you don't, unless you're asking a question. Can you guys do me a favor? just because it makes it easy for me to know when there's a question. So salivary amylase is produced by your salivary glands, right? And by the way, there's some up here too, but the main one is under your tongue. And it's an enzyme, actually. It's an enzyme that helps kick off those chemical reactions. Remember yesterday we talked about enzymes? Enzymes' jobs, right? They're like the key to your car. They kick off they start chemical reactions. And so this one allows hydrolysis to take place in your mouth. So if I go back to my little drawing here, what salivary amylase does is it is able to split complex sugars into disaccharides. So it's not able to fully digest. It's not able to fully digest carbohydrates. It's only able to split them up into slightly smaller pieces. So what it can do is, here I've got my little eraser tool now. What it can do is it can take this big complicated carbohydrate right here, right? Like this is, a carbohydrate made of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sugars, right? So it's slightly more complex. And what I can do is I can break this apart right here using salivary amylase. And that will break these little bonds here, but it can't break this one. It's not good enough at breaking it down into full single sugar molecules, but it's really good at breaking it down into double sugar molecules. So it can break sugars into what we call a disaccharide, which is a 2 sugar molecule, okay? We'll talk more about the disaccharides in just a little bit. So that's what salivary amylase's job. It's able to break complex carbohydrates into double sugar molecules. So that's the first part of digestion. And then you've also got other digestive enzymes. You get a little bit of breaking down fat in there as well, called lingual lipase, although it's not that great at breaking down fats. That's actually better at tasting fats than anything, which is why fatty foods taste so good. Proteins, again, not super good at breaking those down, but there are some. And then even things like electrolytes can be found in your saliva. So that's going to be the first part, right? That's starting in the mouth. And then what's going to happen is food is going to pass into your esophagus. And your esophagus is the first part of your throat there that travels all the way down into your stomach, right? And that's really what we want to spend a lot of time talking about. But your esophagus is going to join your stomach, and it's going to be surrounded by what is called, and this is always fun to say, a gastroesophageal sphincter. Right? Don't worry about knowing that name, by the way. But if you've ever heard the word sphincter before, I feel like whenever I mention the words, everybody always laughs like a little bit. But what sphincters are, they're all throughout your whole body. And what they are is they're these little, doors that can close to keep stuff from moving in one direction or another. So for instance, like, have you guys ever, you ever swallow something down the wrong tube? Right. And then all of a sudden it goes, and you're like, you start coughing like crazy because food went down the wrong direction. Right. So there's a little flap actually that separates, your digestive tract heading into your stomach. And then it's actually always open. I guess I'm doing this wrong. The stomach is on this side. It's behind my arm. And this is your airway into your lungs. And there's a little flap right there. And when you swallow food, what happens is that flap just goes boop, and then that makes the food move into your stomach. And it's about that fast. It's really, 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 really fast, actually. It's called your glottis. And that's how your body's making sure stuff doesn't go in the wrong direction. Well, at the base of your stomach, we also don't want to make too much food go into our stomach too quickly. And we also want to make sure that food doesn't come back up in the other direction. So we've got what is called your lower esophageal sphincter, right? That's your gastroesophageal sphincter. And it's just a little tube that, like, once food is in, it closes up and it keeps food from traveling this way. And then if you eat again, it'll open up for a second and then it'll close back down. And that keeps food in your stomach, even if you're doing a handstand, Now, one of the things that we also need to talk about, and actually, I guess I don't have this might not be in your homework because I don't have a note for it. But one of the key I would say this is still an important term here. So it's in bold here. Another thing that's moving food throughout, right? So it would make sense if we ate something, if gravity just kind of you know, dropped it into our stomach. It would make sense that if gravity did most of the work. But I mean, I could technically do a handstand and eat some food and it would still travel against gravity, you know, upwards into my stomach. And it's able to do that because my body will make little tiny contractions to move that food along to where it needs to go. Those contractions are what is known as peristalsis. So you remember, Soraya, you asked me like what propulsion is, right? So propulsion is moving something from one direction to another. That happens because of peristalsis. So peristalsis is, you know, these little contractions. I always like to think of it, the way I always remember it is it kind of looks when you, if you were to look at it, it kind of looks like, you know, when you're at the end of a tube of toothpaste and you're like, you're trying to get that last little bit of toothpaste out and you do that little squeeze from the bottom and it moves it all to the edge. That's kind of how peristalsis like is these little tiny, like little contractions that push your food along your entire digestive tract. And that's why if you've ever taken too big of a swallow of food, it feels like you're like, oh God, and it kind of hurts as it's going down. That's because, you know, these muscles are all stretched out and they're trying to squeeze, but they're just, you know, having a hard time getting a good grip. So peristalsis will move that into your actual stomach there, right? So a contraction will happen, you know, and then another one, and it'll move it into your actual stomach. So any questions about ingestion so far?
No.
Feeling good? Speaking of, I had a hard time getting back from my run this morning. There is a lot of people with New Year's resolutions in the parking lot of the trail that I like to run. And they were all on my way today. And I was like, I gotta go. And so I'm having breakfast a little late. All right, let's talk about digestion. So what's interesting is we're talking about this in the order of this PowerPoint. It goes in order of like the different roles that your digestive system plays, like the different things it does. So we're gonna go back to the mouth again and start over. So looking at the process of digestion, right? So digestion involves, breaking down materials into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller pieces until eventually those pieces are so small they can pass through the walls of your body into your bloodstream. That's the whole role of digestion, right? So that starts with chewing, which has a big scientific name here known as mastication. That's mastication. So it involves opening and closing your jaws, moving them side to side. That's actually why there's a little muscle right here called your masseter. It's the little tiny, if you've ever been chewing something like I feel like it happens to me when I'm eating baby carrots. I'm like, I don't know, it takes forever to chew them up. You know, these little muscles get kind of tired right here. That is your masseter. And actually, here's kind of a weird fun fact. This is just a fun fact of the day. One of the ways to tell if someone is taking steroids or if someone is taking human growth hormone, you will see this will actually grow a little bit. Their masseter will actually get larger, and there's no reason for that muscle to grow. There's no way to like work, there's nothing to do to work that muscle out, but you'll see it happen in people. And that's why, that sometimes you'll hear it described when you talk about like athletes who are taking steroids, they're like their head inflated. Like I always show people, Barry Bonds is like my favorite example. If you look at like Barry Bonds, rookie versus retiring. If you look at him, his head is straight up bigger. It's a very different look. And it's not just because he's a little older. You can see like it literally bulges out around his cheeks. And we all know that, he got caught big time for taking a lot of steroids and stuff. But anyway, there's your fun fact of the day. Mastication involves chewing. And then what's going to happen is it's going to, swallow that food, and then peristalsis will move it into your stomach. Now, your stomach is where a lot of the heavy lifting of digestion takes place. So your stomach is this little pouch shaped kind of like a J, and it's got all these like different layers that create hydrochloric acid, which is literally an acid made of chlorine. There's actually chlorine in there, which means that the stuff that's in bleach, you know, is actually an essential nutrient. But no, do not go drinking bleach. That will be very dangerous. We're talking about very, very, very minute amounts. In fact, you know, like table salt has about as much of the chlorine in it that you will need for your day. So you're going to get most of that from that. But it's a very acidic compound. Hydrochloric acid is very acidic. In fact, it's actually so acidic. If you were to reach into your own stomach and like get a little like beaker of it and pour it onto your arm, it would actually give you a chemical burn. You would get a little burn on your skin, the same way that like, you know, touching battery acid would give you like a little chemical burn. It's just not, it's gonna literally start digesting your arm. So, you know, the question becomes, well, if that's true, why hasn't it like eaten its way out of my stomach? Like, right? Like, why hasn't my stomach acid digested me and, you know, come all the way through the other side? And the truth is that it actually does happen to some people. It's not going to go all the way through, but, you know, they actually do end up getting stomach acid that digests a small part of their body. If anybody in here knows anybody who's ever, or if you have an ulcer, if you've ever heard of an ulcer, or know somebody who has one, that is essentially where too much stomach acid has actually eaten through an area of your esophagus. And now what's happening is like when food travels through it starts leaking out and it hurts. It's really painful, you know? And so like that's what happens when people have ulcers. There are these little holes that got eaten through their digestive tract. So how do we keep that from happening? Well, your body creates, luckily for you, your body creates something that is totally the opposite of that acid. It creates something that's very, what is called base. It's very alkaline. And that is your mucus. So your stomach has all these different linings. Let's see if, yeah, there we go. I was like, I got to get a picture at some point here. So when you look at your stomach, you know, there's a lot of acid laying in here, but look at all these different layers, right? And see how they're kind of alternating in direction. Like this one goes up, this one goes to the side, this one goes up, right? Those alternating layers create mucus inside of your stomach in order to keep that acid from working its way out. Now, I do want to show you guys how good hydrochloric acid is at digesting stuff. And I got to warn you, this video contains the most scientist-looking scientist in human history. I mean, like, just, you think I've got crazy hair. You just wait a second. So let's see here. Let's see here. Digesting and HCl. Putting food in hydrochloric. There's the video. There we go. Oh, that's right. It's a cheeseburger. All right. This is a fun little video.
Here we go. Good old McDonald's cheeseburger. Still warm. It's tempted to eat it. Okay, so we're going to leave our burger to digest for a while in the acid. Come back later and see what's happened.
And like most of the chemicals I talk about, I can be absolutely sure that every person watching has a sample of hydrochloric acid with them as they watch. Because hydrochloric acid is found in everybody's stomach, and it's part of our digestive process. So as you're watching me, churning away in your stomach is hydrochloric acid, which is one of the first stages in which food is broken down into usable components to give you energy and make you fat.
It's 3.5 hours. So we're going to see what happens to tasty McDonald's cheeseburger after 3.5 hours of concentrated hydrochloric acid. Okay. Ooh. Oh my God. I think it's absolutely disgusting. So, I mean, the fats aren't really going to dissolve very well because in your stomach, there's lots of bile acids and things in your actual body to do digestion. This is just pure HCl.
Tasty, right?
No.
So I warned you guys, digestion gets gross. So, so that is honestly what a lot of your food looks like. And he made a really good point in that video.
Hey, Brad.
Yeah, question.
So the acid in that video was concentrated acid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you digest it, does it also become black like that inside of you?
Yeah, it does actually. It actually becomes, so what we would refer to that, we label that a different, like, so when food is passing through your body, like when you're swallowing it, we have a term for that. We call it a bolus. It's like a chunk of chewed up food. We call it a bolus, right? And what happens is when it gets into your stomach, it gets churned up and it gets broken down into that kind of blackish, brownish, soupy mixture, right?
Oh, well, that explains the bowel colors.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay.
So that is has a different term. We call that chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, chyme. Chyme is like, yeah, it's like, it's basically what your poop will become before it's all pressed together and all the water's pulled out of it. But for right there, you know, it's this kind of big, wet, soupy mixture.
Right.
But it's packed full of nutrients right now. So like we want to get all the nutrients from that chyme. You know, we want to get that chyme to get pulled out of the body and be, you know, pull all the nutrients out of it. Now, again, a little bit nasty here, but like, you know, think about the last time that you, got food poisoning, right? You probably lost some of it this way. Right? Like, you know, you're probably sitting over like, oh my God, you know, like losing it out the front end. Now, when food goes this way, it does that because it's still, for the most part, foodish. You know, it really hasn't been sitting in your stomach acid very long, so it hasn't been broken down. So that's why it kind of comes out looking similar to how it went down, you know? At least in most cases. And it burns, right? When you throw it, it burns like crazy because that's your stomach acid, right?
Right.
Or at least it's food mixed with your stomach acid. And then there's the other half of food poisoning, which is going out the other end, right? And it all, you know, it's very much often like, you know, this liquid, you know, it comes out. I'm sorry, guys. Welcome to PFT, by the way. It's your second day of class, and we're talking about diarrhea. But it comes out as like, you know, liquid, right? That liquid is because like your body is like, I'm not absorbing this. This has something in it that is bad for me. Just get it out, right? And so it's not finished digesting. It's not finished having stuff absorbed out of it. Instead, your digestive system is going, it's like a bouncer at a club that's like, everybody gone, you know, it's closing time, out the door, you know?
Yeah. So I have another question. About that. You know, you were explaining the sphincters.
Mm-hmm.
Do they also sense when there's something bad in you?
They sure do.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's actually that's part of your immune system. But yeah, they actually have little receptors on them. And if a parasite, parasites especially, but if a parasite or bacteria, you know, trips the alarm, that triggers this process. It's all autonomic, right? I mean, all of us in here have probably had that moment where we're sick and we're about to throw up and you're like, nope, don't do it. Don't you dare. You know, like you're like, yeah. I'm not, oh, here, you know, like, you know, your conscious nervous system is going, no. But your autonomic nervous system is like, look, this is happening. You know, like, the alarm has been tripped. The thing that happens next is we get it out of the body. and that's your autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
So yeah. And actually, you did a good job. You segued me. We got a little bit more talking about those sphincters here, but we'll get to it in just a second here. So in your stomach, there is hydrochloric acid, which is an extremely acidic material responsible for chemically breaking down food like we saw in the video, right? But there is also some other stuff in there. There's there's other stuff in that hydrochloric acid. And he even mentioned it in the video. You saw how like he lifted it up, but it still kind of was attached. You know, it wasn't like fully, you know, broken down. The reason a lot of that was still held together is because that was a McDonald's hamburger, which means it was super high in fat. There's no way that wasn't at least like a, you know, a 40% or higher like fat burger, right? And fats actually don't break down very well in your stomach. Fats don't really get digested that well inside of your stomach. Proteins get digested in your stomach. Carbohydrates get ingested in your stomach. But fats, for the most part, they kind of stay together. And that's why that burger still had some shape. There was a lot of fats that were kind of holding the structure of that burger together in the video that we watched. So, you know, why is it that, well, you know, why do proteins get broken down so well? Well, luckily, there is another material inside of your stomach. And by the way, there's other ones in that material as well. That gastric juice, it has it's got a little bit of lipase. Like I said, it does help, you know, with some fats. It does break some fats down. It just doesn't do a lot of them. It helps you absorb vitamin B12. There's a lot, you know, there's enterokinase and, you know, peptidase and sucrase. All of these different enzymes are helping you break down different materials that are going to be found in food. So it's not just hydrochloric acid. But the one thing that's important, you know, the one that I want you guys to know, the one that I want you to remember is this one called pepsin. Pepsin is often the one that NASA asks about, so that's why I want you to know it. Pepsin is actually an enzyme that aids in the digestion of protein by breaking the peptide bonds that hold your amino acids together. So remember yesterday we talked about how proteins are held together a little bit. They're much better held together than carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, they just got a little bit of oxygen holding them together. So it's pretty easy to break them apart. Proteins, they're held together with this much more complicated bond, right? We see, oh God, I forgot. It always does that with an empty background. Hold on. I need a better picture. That one. The freaking clear backgrounds. Oh yeah, whatever. So you take a look right here, right? This amino acid plus this amino acid come together, and it's held together with oxygen just like our carbohydrates were, but there's this other stuff here. This is a much stronger bond. So we need something stronger to break it apart. That's where your pepsin comes in, and that's found in your stomach. So pepsin will break the peptide bonds of your proteins. And I just want to mention that one in particular. You know, that's usually the one NASA asks about. You know, they might bring up hydrochloric acid. They might bring up, you know, lingual lipase, but probably not. The ones they usually ask you about is salivary amylase and pepsin. This is for carbs. This is for proteins. Okay, any questions on digestion before we move on to the fun part, absorption? I think I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. Yeah. Sorry. Get used to that. All right. All right. Let's look at absorption. So, absorption is the process of allowing chemicals to pass from the digestive system into your bloodstream. So this is all about actually bringing those nutrients. It's official. Once they are absorbed, it's in your body, right? Everything until now has been that outside environment that I was talking about, but with the help of absorption, now it's all part of the inside environment. It is in your bloodstream. So Now you've officially got it. So how the heck does that happen? I mean, remember, like, you know, if something's going to straight up pass through the walls of something else, it better be pretty freaking small, you know? Like, these are chemicals that we're talking about here, right? Like, we're talking about absorbing a single carbohydrate molecule, you know? That's passing into your bloodstream. And your blood cells are going to carry that carbohydrate wherever it's going. And guess what? Your blood cells, they are some of the smallest cells in your body. And so, like, these chemicals are very, 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 very small, thanks to our digestive system breaking it down. You know, I cannot absorb a chunk of apple, but I can dissolve that apple into this wet, soupy mixture until it's nothing but chemicals, and then I can absorb all of that, right? Your small intestine is attached to your stomach, and it's this tubular organ. It's got all these loops. It's got all these coils. Let's see if I can get a picture here. No, okay, hold on. Let me pull up a picture of your small intestine. So that's a much larger picture. So here's your stomach, right? And then what you can see is there's this little smooth section up here at the top, right as it's hooking. By the way, this little bulge right here, that's where you're going to find like the sphincter that keeps food from moving from one part to the next. So there's a little sphincter right here that keeps food from moving in until basically there are these little stretch receptors. And when something really smooth runs across them, like if it's a liquid, that causes the sphincter to open up. But if something really solid runs across it, it causes it to stay closed down. And that's how your body knows to move digested food into your small intestine rather than just, you know, large chunks of food. So it's going to move through this first section here, which is called your duodenum or duodenum. And this is going to connect right here. You can see this little green, see this little pear-shaped thing right back here, and there's this little tube right here. You can't see it because it's behind, but there's a connection between this little guy's tube and this first part of the duodenum there. That is actually, this is your gallbladder. This is how you get this material into your small intestine that helps you break down fats. And I'll talk about it in just a second. But this is the first part of the small intestine. And then it kind of loops back around and goes through this middle section. This is like your jejunum, which is where most of the absorption actually takes place. So most of the absorption of nutrients is taking place in all of this stuff right in here. And then at the very end, it becomes what's called your ileum, and it attaches to your large intestine. And your large intestine is really not in charge of like absorbing most materials, at least in terms of like vitamins and at least in terms of proteins, fats, and carbs. But your large intestine does absorb all of your water. So it's going to pull water into your bloodstream. And that's a good thing because it's, guess what? Dehydrating all of that wet, soupy mixture. And what happens when you dehydrate stuff? It all comes together. And so now that chyme, which is that wet, soupy mix, is moving through your small intestine. And then all the water starts getting pulled out of it, and it starts to become more and more and more solid until eventually, after it's done making a little victory lap around your body, it exits outside, and you get rid of all the waste products, right? So let's go ahead and go back to the top of the small intestine here. So like I said, it's a tubular organ that is going to receive secretions from both your liver and from your pancreas, right? Which actually, I guess I probably better pull that picture back up. Hold on. So you've got your liver and your pancreas in there as well. There we go, that's a good picture. So you can see here, here's your liver. And your liver creates this material that we're going to see in our notes in just a second called bile. It's an accessory organ. And bile is how you digest fats. And what happens is your liver will make the bile, and then it stores it whenever it has a lot of it. It stores it in your gallbladder, and then your gallbladder's job is to drop it off into your small intestine. Anybody in here know somebody who has lost their gallbladder, had it removed?
Yeah. What is mean?
So you can live without your gallbladder. My mom had a really, really bad gallstone. And by the way, the gallbladder is, I'd say it's about, I don't know, probably the size of 2 thumbs. You know, I'd say like if you hold 2 thumbs together, that's about how big your gallbladder is. So not very large. My mom had a gallstone that was like that big. And so it got so large, they couldn't save her gallbladder. They had to remove it. But it's like, wait a minute, my gallbladder is what gives me the bile, and the bile is how we break down fats. So, luckily your gallbladder does not make bile. Your liver makes it, but it stores it in your gallbladder in order to be dropped off. So what they do when they remove this organ is they just attach a tube directly from your liver straight onto your small intestine. And that means that like now my mom, if she has like a super really intense, lots of fat in it meal, she might get a little bit of gastrointestinal problems because some of those fats might not get broken down properly. But for the most part, like it's fine. That's actually an organ that you can somewhat live without, although it does have a job. So, don't get rid of it for no reason. Now you've also got your pancreas here, and your pancreas is going to make special enzymes that also help you further digest any carbohydrates that happen to survive your stomach. So your pancreas and your liver and your gallbladder are these little accessory organs that attach to your small intestine. So your small intestine's got these little tubes here that allow it to attach. Now, like I said, the duodenum is the first part. This is really the mixing area where all that wet soupy mixture gets mixed together with, that bile that I just talked about, or those pancreatic enzymes. It gets mixed with those materials to do any final digestion. If at this point, if stuff hasn't been finished digesting, your small intestine, the very first section is going to finish it all off. And that's where it's really going to do a lot of this just final like chemical breakdown stuff, right? But then it's going to move into your jejunum and your ileum, which is the next sections. You'll kind of notice, by the way, this is a little bit more muscular than these two are. And the reason for that is because there's a little bit more digestion that's happening here. But this is where the heavy lifting of absorption takes place. You can see, look at how many like little like folds there are here. That's going to make a little bit more sense here in just a second. That's where a lot of, absorption really, really occurs. Your jejunum, like I said, is the middle section, and your ileum is the final section. Don't worry about those names. You don't need to know those. But here's a term that you definitely do need to know. So your small intestine, its whole job is to allow for the absorption of all of these nutrients, right? Well, how does it actually do that? Because these are chemicals, right? These are very, very small chemicals that need to get into your bloodstream. So you have these little itty bitty tiny, they look like hairs on the inside of your small intestine, and they've got a little opening at the end of them. And that way something can pass through and get into your bloodstream. Those are called your villi and your microvilli. So, so your villi are these microscopic projections from the small intestine, and they are lined with blood vessels. So they actually look like this. This is what the inside of your small intestine actually looks like. It's all of these little microscopic little hairs like this. And then see these like different colored tubes here? These are blood vessels. This red one is making sure that the villi stays alive by giving it blood. And this blue one is picking up nutrients, carrying them into your bloodstream, and taking them over to the liver. And there's also a little bit of like lymph in there as well. This is making sure that they stay hydrated.
So can you repeat it again, please? What did
yeah, totally. So those are your villi, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you. There's probably a better picture online. I'll find a slightly better one. I want to find a zoomed out. There we go. Okay, so take a look right here, right? Here's the actual small, oh, hold on. I can make this picture bigger. So here's the actual small intestine, right? And you see how like there's blood vessels that are kind of covering the whole thing. But then if you zoom in, let's say you zoom in like crazy, see how it's got all these little folds on it? And then all those little folds, look at this little tiny box right here. This little tiny box, it's zooming in. If you zoom in on those folds, they look like this. They're these little tiny folds. And they've got this little yellow tube right here. That's delivering fluid, just making sure that your cells stay hydrated. And then this blue one, this red one is, you know, blood is coming into this red area right here. And now the blood cells are present. And then this blue area is where it picks up the nutrients and then it gets carried into your bloodstream and carried over to your liver for detoxification and then carried throughout the rest of your body to, you know, deliver those carbohydrates where they need to go. And now, you know, your cells can go do what they need to do. And these little hairs right here, this looks kind of big. This is not what these hairs look like. They are microscopic, and you know there's probably maybe 100 of them in this picture in this much but like remember, it's this whole lining right here as well. You have millions and millions and millions of these little tiny folds on the inside of your small intestine, millions and millions of them, and that is where nutrients are passing through this wall right here. You know, they're literally, a nutrient is, let's say it's like you know, a vitamin or a mineral, a sugar or an amino acid or a fat, right? Any of those things are going to pass right through this wall here, and they're going to get absorbed into the bloodstream, and then they're going to get carried into your body. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So that is the process of absorption, which is so cool. I mean, like, you know, like these are just so small, you know, I mean, think about it. These are chemicals we're talking about here. We're talking about individual amino acids or individual sugar molecules, you know, but your digestive system has slots for all of them. By the way, that's also how your body knows to not let other stuff in there. Again, we're going to get a little weird here. But has anybody ever seen like anybody ever been babysitting and had like a little one, you know, eat like a candy wrapper or something, you know? It kind of comes out the other end still looking like a candy wrapper, you know, like if you ever eat something that is not food, your body does not have the tools necessary to break it down. So your body doesn't know that it's food. Your body's like, I don't know what this is. This isn't food. And so it doesn't break it down, which means that it just kind of passes through you and gets pulled out the other end and kind of stays the same. Your body does not have the tools to absorb plastic or ink, you know, which are like, you know, little dyes and stuff. And that's why like a Snickers wrapper goes in, Snickers wrapper is coming out, you know? And that's a good thing. You know, we don't want that stuff inside of our bloodstream. Here's another weird fun fact for you. I think that this is like a weird fun fact that I learned about a cat. So I always think it's kind of fun. Did you know cats cannot taste sugar? So cats do not know what sugar tastes like. Their taste buds do not have sugar receptors. And that's how we know cats, all felines, they are strictly carnivores. Your dog can taste sugar. Your dog is an omnivore. Your dog can eat vegetables and it can eat protein. You know, it can eat both of them. Cats, protein only. Well, protein and fat only. They only eat meat. And we know that because they cannot taste anything that is not protein. And that's why a lot of times, you know, if you give like a cat something, oftentimes they'll still lick it because there's like dairy, you know, like if you give like a ice cream bar or something, a cat might still be, or chocolate even, they might still be interested in it. But for the most part, if you were to give like a cat like a Jolly Rancher, which is like pure sugar, right? Your cat would be like, what? I don't know what that is. It would taste like plastic. It would taste like nothing, you know? That's also how we know what nutrients humans can eat too, you know? If you go, you know, licking an aluminum can, you know, when you're drinking like a soda or something, aluminum is not a nutrient. So your body doesn't have taste receptors. That's why aluminum tastes like nothing for the most part. But if you go lick like an iron bar, you're like, yeah, it tastes like iron. Well, guess what? Iron is an essential nutrient. So your body has taste receptors for things that are food, but not for things that are not food. And that's important because this is determining what eventually gets to this. So if you get something that is not food into your body somehow, your small intestine can't absorb it. So it's just wasting your time, it's wasting energy, and your body hates waste. Your body is always trying to be as efficient as possible. Now, one last little thing, just while we're on villi here, I don't know if you guys can even tell, but do you see these little tiny hairs that are coming off of the, there's this big fold right here. And then do you see these little itty bitty tiny hairs? I don't know if it's easy for you guys to see on your phones, but there are these little hair-like projections. Here, villi. There we go, that's perfect. So here's like a little villi, right? And then see these little, if we zoom in, you see these little hairs right here? So that is your microvilli. So even those little folds, right? These big folds have little hairs on them, and then those little hairs have more hairs on them. Hair on hair on hair. That microvilli isn't where absorption takes place, but that's actually how certain nutrients get moved to where they need to go. So let's say you've got like a sugar molecule that lands here, but it needs to get absorbed up here. Those little hairs can move it and actually like fluctuate that until it eventually gets sucked into the right slot. And that's how your body sort of moves fluid and other nutrients around to make sure that they are getting where they need to get, if that makes sense. So last little bit here, just talking about absorption. There is a little bit more absorption that's going to take place in your large intestine. Your large intestine is this, like I said, it's kind of a victory lap, right? It kind of goes back around your entire, your small intestines, all this in here. But it's actually not, the reason it's called your large intestine is because it's thicker. But your small intestine is, I think, 3 or maybe 4 times as long. It's much longer than your large intestine is. But this is where your body is going to do some final absorption. Anything that didn't get absorbed in your small intestine, its last chance to make it into the bloodstream is here in the large intestine. So there's a little tiny bit more absorption that's going to take place here. But primarily, your large intestine's job is to absorb water. This is where a lot of your drinking action actually comes in. Your body is going to pull all the water out of that chyme. So remember, that wet, soupy mixture is chyme, right? And by this point, it got broken down in my stomach, and now all that chyme, any nutrition, any nutritious stuff has been absorbed as it's been making its way through my small intestine. That chyme has been losing nutrients, all been getting pulled into my bloodstream. And now eventually, once it gets to my large intestine, there's really not that much nutritious stuff left in it. There's not really that many carbs left. There's not very much protein or fats left, but there is a lot of water, and your body wants to get all of that water into your bloodstream. So what it's going to do is it's going to start pulling that water out of your that chyme, and it's dehydrating it, right? And remember we talked about yesterday, when we dehydrate something, molecules get linked together. So that wet, soupy stuff is getting more and more dehydrated, and it's becoming more and more and more solid until eventually it gets to the rectum here, which is where it officially gets pushed outside of your body as like waste product, right? Now, because vitamins and minerals, especially minerals, are also very small and they also float around very easily in parts of water, a lot of water is going to have a lot of particularly B vitamins and vitamin C, which are your water-soluble vitamins. A lot of vitamins get absorbed in your large intestine. And then a little bit of minerals are going to work their way in there as well. And we know that vitamins and minerals are both very important for certain physiologic processes. So thank you, large intestine, for getting all those B vitamins and all that other stuff inside of the body, right? All right, so it's an additional site of absorption where most water absorption takes place. And, you know, large intestine is primarily also responsible for elimination, which is getting all that stuff out of your body.
Question.
Yeah, please.
I know we're on the digestive system, so I have to get it out of here. It might sound like TMI, but it's a form of digestion we're just talking about anyway. You know, when you were talking about the chyme and it pulls out the water, you know, when sometimes you are about to digest and you don't have that, what happens when there's water that comes with, you know what I mean? Like if you have a wet, like digestive.
It's not really wet, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So what is that? What happens there?
So there's a couple different things. It could be that you may have like eaten something that is preventing you from absorbing everything. So there could be like a parasite. There could be a bacteria in there. But here's the other thing. One of the other things that I didn't really talk about and it's just, we haven't talked about it because honestly, we don't know too much. We're learning more and more and more about it all the time. But you have a lot of bacteria that is good bacteria that lives in your gut. So it lives in your large intestine, and that good bacteria's job is to do just a little bit more breakdown. You know, think of bacteria as these little living critters, you know, they're these little living creatures inside your body, which sounds kind of weird, but here's what's actually even weirder. You have more bacteria, because they're very small, you have more bacteria living in your body than you have number of cells that make up your body, because your cells are so much larger. So there's actually like billions of bacteria, which is crazy to me if you ask. But we're basically like a little shell that bacteria use to move around the world. But here's the thing, those bacteria, they require like food and resources, just like any animal would, right? You got to feed your cat and your dog, you know? And if those bacteria die, you can't do that final little bit of digestion. And if there are large chunks of things that did not get fully broken down, then your body is going to go, look, if I pull the water out of this, it isn't going to be able to pass out of the body. It's going to be so hard and solid that it will be impossible to move out. So what your body will do instead is it will not absorb that water, and it will leave it in there, and it will often come out, like I said, like wet and soupy and kind of bad. One thing that might help is actually, you know, and this is so funny. Charlie can tell you this. I am not a big fan of taking supplements. A lot of people always have questions about, you know, vitamins and minerals and what supplements to take to help them get the best results possible. I really don't like supplements. So it's ironic that I'm going to talk about one on day 2 of class. But if you have trouble with that, you might find that taking like a probiotic can have a really positive effect. The other thing that you can try doing is increasing the fiber in your diet. So we'll talk more about fiber when we get to our nutrition class, but fiber is basically these big, they're carbohydrates, but they are chains of carbohydrates that are so complex that your body can't break them down. They're actually so complicated that we don't have anything in our digestive tract that breaks them down, except for at the very end, your gut bacteria can eat some of that fiber and it can live off of it. So it's like, you know, in the feeding your dog, you gotta feed your pets, right? Well, you kind of need to feed your gut bacteria by making sure that you have enough fiber in your diet. Typically for men, we want to get around 40 or 44 grams of fiber a day. Fiber recommended intake. Women are about 38 a day. So men, we want to get about 38 grams of fiber per day. And you're going to get fiber from, you know, vegetables are a really good source. Whole grains are a really good source. Fruits with the skin on is a really good source. Peas, lentils, beans, things like that. Those are all really high fiber sources. So that is one of the things you can do. If you know somebody who is like struggling with something like that, a little bit of like maybe a probiotic while increasing their fiber intake. By the way, just be aware, if that does happen to them, if you do that, you might find that the first couple days are a little rough because your body is going to get all this fiber and it's going to move through you and kind of clean you out. So that can be a rough couple of days the first time. But with clients that I know who have had like digestive problems like that, I always recommend making sure they get enough fiber in their diet. Does that answer your question?
No.
Definitely. That was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Soraya, did you say no?
No, I'm fine.
Oh, okay. I was like, I want to make sure we all know. And then the other part of it, it also could just be, and this happens sometimes, it could also just be that like, if it's something that comes out of the blue and is like consistent for several days in a row, taking a probiotic doesn't fix it, increasing the fiber doesn't take it. This is kind of surprising. If it's a lifelong thing that someone's been dealing with, then I wouldn't say this is likely a cause. But sometimes, I mean, we can pick up parasites all over the place without knowing it. It could just be in our food and they live in your gut for a long time. And so like I had a client who had a really similar problem. She was having a lot of gastrointestinal distress. This is actually, God, this was like my first year on the job. But she was having all these problems and she was like, what do I do? What do I take? And I was like, look, I'm not qualified to tell you, how to medically fix your stomach problems. But I saw this and I was like, maybe try, firing up the fiber, maybe try getting a probiotic. And eventually I was like, and honestly, and what I really told her, I was like, well, you should go to the doctor. If this is a problem that doesn't go away, you've been dealing with it for several months now. She went to the doctor. She found out she had a parasite. She had gone on like a vacation and, drank some water that wasn't, had a bunch of parasites in it, and it just lived in her gut for several months at a time. It's not that big a deal, and it sounds bad. I know, like sometimes we would say stuff like, oh, it's not a bit, she went to the doctor gave her medicine, problem solved, You've got so many parasites living on your body right now, guys. It's really nothing to be afraid of. You want another weird fun fact for the day? This one's real bad. You guys know like chlamydia, right? The clap, it's a sexually transmitted infection. So there is a strain of chlamydia that lives on your eyelashes. It's there every day when you wake up. Whenever you do this, you're wiping it away. But if it ever gets into your eyes, it can make you sick. But that's why you take a shower every day, So there's your next weird, scary fact for the day. But it's something to be, it's really just not that big a deal. Don't worry. Don't be too afraid of bacteria. Don't be too afraid of viruses, too afraid of parasites, unless it happens to be a really dangerous virus that kills lots of people, like the freaking world we live in right now. Ugh, take that one seriously. All right. I realized I was like, this is a weird time to talk about this. All right, let's move on to our, let's go over our accessory organs really quick. So remember, I mentioned we've got some accessory organs. One of them, the most important one, is your liver. And your liver is so cool. Look at all these like very interesting little cells here, right? They're very tightly packed together. They're covered absolutely head to toe in blood vessels. There is a lot of blood that runs through your liver. And that's where, a lot of detoxification takes place. Let's say something gets into your bloodstream that's not supposed to be there. Luckily, the first stop any food entering your bloodstream makes, it goes right through your liver first. So let's say you got some bacteria or a parasite or a virus or something that's just not food, right? Let's say you ate like, you accidentally, like actually food coloring is a good example. Let's say some food coloring was put into a food. Well, it's going to go into your liver, and your liver is going to give it an unholy beat down of enzymes. And anything that goes in there is going to get destroyed. That's your liver's main job once it gets into your actual bloodstream. And then after that, if it's a carbohydrate, doesn't get destroyed, moves in, boom, heads up to your brain to give you energy, So there's these little, what we call hepatic lobules, these little like holes that are like your functional cells in the liver. Now, that's actually not, that inner part is not necessarily part of our conversation today. What we're mainly focusing on when we talk about the liver today is that your liver actually, that's inside your bloodstream, but your liver also puts stuff outside into your digestive tract. So it creates bile. And what bile is it is an emulsifier. So your liver is an accessory organ. It has a lot of different functions. Like I said, it kills a lot of like things that get into your body. It stores glycogen, but it primarily for today produces bile. Now, what is bile? Bile is actually a salt, not like table salt, but it is a chemical salt, and its job is to help emulsify fat. So I want everybody to think about the last time you made like ground beef, right? Like maybe you were making like pasta or, tacos or whatever. You have a pan of ground beef, right? And in the pan afterwards, there's all this grease left over, right? All this fat that fell off, and it's all left in the pan. And, if you take that over to the sink and you run it under hot water, what happens? Nothing, right? I mean, a little bit, right? Like hot water kind of breaks it down a little, but like for the most part, like running it under water doesn't really help with all that grease. What do you need to do? Somebody.
With water, to put soap or something chemicals like the Clorox.
Yeah. So you put a little bit of dish soap in there. So dish soap is actually what is known as an emulsifier. It is very similar to your bile. And so this is kind of what fats look like, actually. I'm going to go ahead. So that's what a carbohydrate looks like, right? Let me erase this here. So this is what your fats kind of look like. They kind of look like this little interesting little like squiggle like that. And then they got these little fatty acids on them at the end here. So this is what's known, this little backbone right here, this is what's called glycerol. And then this is a fatty acid. Okay, so this is actually kind of what fats look like. This is sort of what they look like when you zoom in on them, right? And what's interesting is glycerol is attracted to water, okay? But these little fatty acids, they are afraid of water. They are what is known as hydrophobic. They are scared of water. So if you drop a whole bunch of fats into water, this is what one of them looks like. What'll end up happening is it will look like this. If you drop a whole bunch of fats onto a pan or into some water, it'll kind of look like this. You'll have one here. I'm gonna draw it like this. I'm gonna skip the little heads on them, and then there'll be another one here, and another one here, and then on the other side there'll be ones that look like this. And what they'll do is they'll arrange themselves. They'll put the scared of water side on the inside, and they'll put the attracted to water side on the outside. And what that does is that creates this double layer thing. And now water cannot get through here. It cannot puncture from one side to the other. So fats will grab themselves together and water can't get through. And that's why you need dish soap. What dish soap does is it is an emulsifier. So this little fatty acid here, it breaks this little backbone. And so an emulsifier is going to come along and it's going to break this little backbone right here and chunk it apart. And now you're left with individual fatty acids all by themselves, which you can get right off of that pan. That is exactly what bile does. Bile will break apart your fatty acids. So that is how we digest our fats, right? Emulsifiers are able to break fatty acids down into their individual components, making them small enough for absorption. And bile, by the way, is this kind of weird yellowish, greenish material that's inside of your, like I said, it's in your gallbladder, right? So your gallbladder is actually, you can see it right here. So there's your liver. This is where bile is created. And then what it does is it puts that bile into your gallbladder to store it. And then when your body starts, when your body is ready for digestion, your gallbladder will spit that bile into your small intestine, and it will digest your fats in your diet. That's why that burger still had kind of held together in the hydrochloric acid from the video earlier. It didn't have any bile to break down the fats, and so the fats were all still held together. There's also on the same duct, by the way, your pancreas is attached here as well. And your pancreas excretes some more enzymes in here, particularly these ones called brush border disaccharides, which are there to break up any sugars or anything that happens to be left. So they share a little tube here. But like I said, it's a little pear-shaped sac, just below the liver, and its job is to secrete that bile. And so it does this, process of emulsification. Emulsification is breaking them down, breaking fats into smaller droplets, right? What's that little experiment they would show, they do it with kids, right? Emulsification of colored water experiment. They always do this for kids. Yeah, here we go. So he's gonna. Sorry. Freaking ads. All right. So what he's gonna do is he's gonna, he's got some oil here. There's water. He puts a whole bunch of oil. Food coloring is primarily water-based. So you can see they're creating little droplets. They're all holding together in there, right? And see how they're really, they're kind of breaking apart for the most part, but they're still, those are big chunks if you think about it in terms of your body. And he's going to pour it in there, and they're all going to raise to the top, right? It's all going to hang out up here. Because all of the fat is grabbing together, right? One of them got it. One of them escaped. So all the fat is, arranging itself together, and it's kind of protecting itself, right? Oh, he's not going to do it. Oh, he's just letting it. He's letting the food coloring wipe out of it. That's not quite what I wanted to see. All right. That is such a bummer. I thought this video was exactly what I wanted. So what he can do now, if he were to go to the sink and get some dish soap, and squirts a little bit of dish soap in there, it will break all that fat up, and all that food coloring will get released much, much, much faster. He's just letting it kind of slowly move away. Not quite what I thought was happening. So that's what bile is. Bile is in charge of breaking that up and emulsifying your water. I'm sorry, emulsifying your fats, emulsifying water. And then you've got your pancreas, right? Your pancreas is also sitting there. Like I said, it has, it shares the same duct. You can see it right there. And it creates these things called pancreatic lipase and pancreatic amylase. Again, this is going to further break down carbohydrates. It's going to further break down a little bit of fats. And so those are little accessory organs responsible for creating enzymes that further break stuff down. Any questions on your accessory organs? Bile clear, liver clear, pancreas clear? Clear? Questions, comments, concerns? All right. So our last little bit here of the digestive tract is going to be the elimination part. We're not going to spend too much time on this because honestly, elimination is really, not part of our conversation. Often trainers, we're not really helping our clients with the nutrition related to the elimination. But basically, your colon, you've got a couple different sections of it. It's at the very end of your large intestine there. So your large intestine works its way out around your small intestine, right? Makes that little lap around the body until eventually it attaches to like the rectum so that it can get out of the body. Now there is one little accessory organ that is attached to your large intestine. It's your appendix. Anybody in here had their appendix removed?
No.
You guys have had no surgeries. So your appendix is this little accessory organ. For years, we didn't really think we know what it does. When I was in school, for instance, I was taught that, we don't really know what the appendix does. It's what's called they call it a vestigial organ, which means it's a leftover organ that doesn't do anything. And so they were pretty sure they didn't know what it went. It was something from like when we were cave people, but nowadays they theorize that it actually, remember all that gut bacteria I mentioned earlier, that gut bacteria that lives in your large intestine to help finally break some stuff down. They think that your appendix is basically like a USB stick. It's like a little external hard drive that keeps a culture of all those bacterias. And that way, if you ever have like diarrhea or if you ever get sick and you lose all your good gut bacteria, your appendix can get those cultures restarted and get them to kind of build back up. At least that's the theory. We don't know. Which is my favorite part of all of this. I love the fact that there's still so much stuff we don't know. All right. So any questions so far? We're going to go ahead and move into talking about nutrients next, and actually tell you guys what a carb is, what a protein is, what fats are. Any questions on what we just talked about, though?
So we want to see nutrition now?
A little bit. We're not going to do a ton of it. I mean, I've got literally 8 days of nutrition coming up for you guys. We've got an 8-day class dedicated to nutrition. So everything we're talking about today is going to come back in about 2 weeks. But yeah, we're going to introduce it now. So let's talk about nutrition, right? So nutrition is, when we're talking about nutrients, right? Nutrition is the means by which biologic organisms intake and absorb what we call essential nutrients. And whenever you hear the word essential, Charlie knows this because I say this all the time. Anytime you hear the word essential, when we're talking about biology, anatomy, physiology, whatever, if you hear essential, it means that it is essential that you consume it. It's essential that you eat it. Because if you don't get it from your diet, you're not going to get it anywhere else. So when you hear like an essential fatty acid, right? That's the type of fatty acids that your body can't make. So you have to get it from food. Essential vitamins, right? Your body cannot make them. You have to get them from food. So that is what we talk about. We're talking about our 6 essential nutrients today. So what are our 6 essential nutrients? Well, we've got 2 major categories here. I'm gonna draw a little chart here. You've got 2 major categories and then 1 special category. So you've got what are called macronutrients, and you've got what are called micronutrients, and then you've got water, which is special because we need water, literally to do everything. This is the most of all nutrients. This one is the most essential. But of this, right, we've got, actually, you know what? I need to move this slightly. Let's just give me a little more space. So of your macronutrients, we've got proteins, we've got fats, and we've got carbs. Okay, and of your micronutrients, we've got 2. You have got vitamins and minerals. Okay, so those are our main categories, right? We've got proteins, fats, carbs. Those are your macronutrients. They're called macro because macro means big. So you need to eat full grams of all of these every single day. You need lots of protein, you need lots of fat, you need lots of carbs, right? And then we got our micronutrients. Micro means small. So you've got vitamins and minerals. You don't need very many of them, but they are super important, okay? And then lastly, like I said, you've got water, which is the most essential. And water is just kind of by itself. Water's just water. It's ironic because water is so important, but we actually don't talk about it very much. Like, the information on water is I think it's so large that NASA honestly just skips over it. It's like, make sure you drink enough water. Moving on. It's like, come on. But when we look at your nutrients, right? So nutrients, right? Those are your 6 essential nutrients. Macronutrients, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, like I said, they are required in large quantities, right? So those are your macros. And then micronutrients, they are needed in small quantities. And micronutrients are important for 2 reasons. You've got vitamins, which help regulate certain body functions, you know, like vitamin D allows you to process cholesterol. Vitamin C keeps your immune system and kicks it off. Well, then you've also got minerals, which give your body structure. By eating calcium, your body makes new bones, right? Like all this freaking hard stuff that gives you structure. Phosphorus gives your cells their cell walls, you know, like we need minerals for like body structure and certain physiologic functions, and we need vitamins for certain physiologic functions as well. So very, very important there. And then we've also got to talk about the idea of like what calories are, right? Calories are the amount of energy found in food. So remember yesterday, we talked all about energy, right? We were talking all about like anabolic versus catabolic. And, you know, this breaks down energy and this takes energy to build something up, right? It's all energy. Remember I said yesterday, everything on the entire planet, you included, used to be the energy from the sun. But that energy has changed over and over and over and over again until eventually it became everything that you see around you. You know, the trees outside my house right now are taking energy from the sun, and they're taking in nitrogen from the soil and carbon dioxide from the air, and they're spitting out oxygen. And then oxygen, you know, and then they might become like certain vitamins and minerals that get into some type of food that some animal eats. And then maybe someday I'm going to eat that animal. And so I'm literally going to turn the energy from that sun that went to that tree, that went to that vitamin, that became that. I mean, I'm not going to eat a squirrel, but I can't think of any other animal right now. You know, and it just changed a million times until eventually it became, you know, it became like, you know, part of our bodies, right? So calories are how we measure energy, because there's energy in food. You are going to turn that, you know, I'm going to turn this coffee into, you know, this conversation that I'm having right now. I'm going to take the proteins, the fats, and the carbs, and all the energy that's trapped in those proteins, fats, and carbs. I'm going to take all that energy and I am going to turn it into, you know, this conversation, right? And then I'm going to, you know, turn it into, you know, playing spike ball with my roommates later today. So a calorie is used to measure the energy within foods, right? And so when we talk about how many calories something has, we are talking about how much energy there is trapped within it. Now, we know exactly how much energy is in a gram of protein. We know how much energy is in a gram of fat, and we know how much energy is in a gram of carbohydrates. In 1 gram of carbohydrates, you have 4 calories, right? And in 1 gram of protein, you have 4 calories. So proteins and carbs are the same amount of energy trapped within them. But fat, for every 1 gram, you have 9 calories. So there's actually more energy in fat than there is in carbohydrates. But your body can break down carbohydrates very quickly. So carbohydrates are our favorite source of fuel. for, you know, doing stuff inside the body. Our body prefers that one, okay? So we'll come back, we'll come back to calories here in just a little bit, right? But let's go ahead and go up and take a look more at our carbohydrates here, right? Let's look at our macronutrients, right? So what are carbohydrates? Well, carbohydrates, what's up, Noah? How you doing, man?
All right.
Got you in here. We're just about to wrap up, but I'm glad you made it.
Oh, man. So I gotta the legs.
Yeah, we'll get you in the evening tonight. But you're welcome to stick around for this last little bit. We're just getting into nutrition a little bit. All right, so let's look at carbohydrate. What is a carbohydrate, right? Well, a carbohydrate is a complex chain of sugar molecules, okay? So remember earlier I said, let's see here, let's look at different types of saccharides. So remember earlier I mentioned you've got single sugar molecules, but then you've got like big complex molecules, right? So take a look right here. Oh, what a great picture. I wish I had this in my slides. Take a look right here. This is a monosaccharide. See how it's like a little single sugar molecule all by itself, right? That's a single sugar molecule. That's a molecule of what we call glucose. And glucose is, boy, are we going to talk about glucose a lot, guys. So monosaccharides, mono, which comes from the word that means one, saccharide coming from the word that means sugar. So this is one sugar. It is a single sugar molecule, like I said, glucose, right? So glucose is how, remember yesterday we talked about cellular respiration, right? A single molecule of glucose gets into a cell, and in the liquid portion of the cell, that cell spits out 2 ATP. And then it makes a bunch of lactic acid. And then that lactic acid goes into the mitochondria, and the mitochondria are going to bring in oxygen to help further process that lactic acid. That's going to spit out in the Krebs cycle 2 more ATP. And then it's going to make a whole bunch of that little NAD and FAD, right? And NAD and FAD are going to go into the electron transport chain. You're going to bring in more oxygen, and your body's going to spit out 32 ATP. And then it's going to have some waste products. You're going to exhale some C. It's going to get rid of CO2, and it's going to, and that C in the CO2, by the way, that's the leftover carbon from this carbohydrate, from this monosaccharide. And then it's going to spit out a little bit of water because it was a dehydrating process. And so that's all like the byproducts there. So single sugar molecules are really important. So, you know, I'm going to eat a cracker, right? And that is a big complex chain of single sugar molecules all held together. My salivary amylase is going to start splitting it up into double sugar molecules. It's going to pass into my stomach. Then it's going to get broken down into single sugar molecules. Then it's going to pass into my small intestine. And then that single sugar molecule is going to get absorbed. It's going to travel through my bloodstream, and it's going to go wherever it needs to go to start glycolysis, and then move into the Krebs cycle, and then move into the electron transport chain. Does that make sense, guys? Is everybody tracking that?
Mm-hmm.
Good?
No? Can you just explain again, please?
Yes. I sure can. I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it from a slightly different perspective. So let me talk about these other 2 types of sugars, and then we'll do it again. So what are disaccharides? Well, let's look back at this picture here. A disaccharide, di comes from the word that means 2. So this is a double sugar molecule held together. This is a double sugar molecule. It's 2 glucose molecules held together. So mono is a single sugar molecule. Monosaccharides, by the way, are what you are going to find in like when you eat something that is like really, really sweet and it hits your tongue, you're like, whoa, right? That's because it's like simple sugars, right? Versus like when you eat
like a honey?
Like, yeah, honey is close. Actually, honey has some monosaccharides in it, but it's actually got a lot of disaccharides. Disaccharides are also very, very, very sweet. Mm-hmm. So these two are the really simple sugars, right? Disaccharides are typically monosaccharides are what you're going to find in things like soda. Disaccharides are things that you're going to find in like honey, fruits, very, very, very sweet vegetables. Stuff that tastes sweet are these two versions right here. But yeah, honey is a really good example of a simple sugar. And we can see that here, simple sugars versus complex carbs. You know, if I'm just going to pull up a list here, you know, actually, you know what? This is actually a really good picture. So take a look at how much, like, you know, there's soda, cereal with milk in it, even like, and this is white pasta and a white bread. You guys know when you eat like a slice of like Wonder Bread, you're like, it's kind of sweet tasting, or like a white roll, you know, like a dinner roll. It's really sweet tasting, right? That's because of how simple it is. Versus when you eat like this stuff, like whole wheat bread, it doesn't taste as sweet. It tastes really earthy and you know, grainy, right? Well, that's because this is much more complex than this. And then, like, you know, these are all of our sweets. So there's like by the way, there's date right there. That's like a date, and that's like a fig. Holy crap, those are full of sugars. And then there's literally white sugar right there. You know, a donut, cookies, brown sugar, which has molasses in it. You know, this is all like either single or double sugar molecules. And that's why they taste super sweet versus all of this stuff, which is very complex. This is actually right here. Those are all polysaccharides. So poly stands for the word many, right? Poly means lots of something. So polysaccharides are many sugar molecules all held together. So looking back at our notes, monosaccharides are single sugar molecules like glucose. Disaccharides are double sugar molecules. That's two glucoses held together. And then polysaccharides are either going to be things like starches or fiber or glycogen. Actually, fiber should be up here as well. So fiber is so complicated that your body can't break it down. It's actually such a complicated chain that your body can't, it tries to break it apart, but it's too complex. That's why it works its way all the way through your entire body. But starches, like those found in, you know, you look at like this bread here, or, you know, this squash, right? That's going to have a lot of starch in it, like potatoes. Potatoes are a complex carb full of starch. And that starch is going to be a big, long, complicated chain. And it looks like this, right? Look at how long this chain is. You know, if it was just one, that's a monosaccharide. Two would be a disaccharide, and then a big, long chain, right? So let's say your body, or let's say you decide to go eat, you know, let's keep it kind of, let's see here. Let's say you eat a donut, right? Let's say you eat like a donut, right? So a donut is going to be packed full of sugar, but there are some complex carbs in there. You know, there's not a lot, but there's some. There are some polysaccharides in there, right? Maybe you ate a whole wheat donut, right? So what's going to happen is the simple sugars are going to get into your stomach, and your stomach's going to be like, easy. And it breaks them apart instantly. So they are already glucose. That's going to pass right into your small intestine. Your small intestine is going to go, awesome, put it in the blood, right? It's already broken down. We're done, right? So it's instantly going to raise your blood sugar super, super, super fast. But the rest of the donut, the whole wheat part of it, right, the more complicated part of it, your body is going to pull off bits of sugar one at a time. So it's going to break that one off, and then it's going to break that one off, and it's going to break that one off. And so it's going to slowly deassemble it. That's going to be in your digestive tract for a much longer time, which is why when you hear like diet advice, you'll hear magazines, TV, newspaper, you know, they'll all say the same thing. They're like, here are some tips for, you know, on your diet to deal with hunger. You know, you should eat high fiber foods. You should eat whole grains instead of like simple sugars, you know, and that's going to leave you feeling fuller longer. They say that it leaves you feeling fuller longer because all of that other stuff takes so long to break down. And so it's much more complicated. So that polysaccharide eventually, you know, the starches, right, eventually they get broken down into single sugar molecules. And here we go, Soraya. So that single sugar molecule gets into your bloodstream and it travels, let's say it travels to my bicep, right? And I go to do some bicep curls, right? So that sugar molecule works its way over here and it works its way into one of my cells inside of my bicep. And my bicep is currently trying to come up with enough energy to do some curls, right? Well, what's going to happen is that sugar molecule, and actually I'll pull up a cell here. That sugar molecule is going to go inside of the gooey part of my cell here. You know, actually, hold on. No. Copy image. Paste. All right. So that single sugar molecule is going to go inside of my cell, and it's going to go right in here. So this little like empty, we'll say this little empty space right here. And that's the cytosol, right? That's the cytoplasm, which is the wet, soupy, gooey part of the cell. And it is going to spit out 2 ATP. Okay, and it's going to spit out a little bit of lactic acid, right? So it's going to spit a little bit of ATP and a little bit of lactic acid. Now, that lactic acid is going to work its way over here, and it's going to go inside of our mitochondria, right? So the mitochondria, right? The powerhouse of the cell, right? That's where it's going to go. And now that mitochondria is going to spit out 34 ATP, right? And what's going to happen, the reason it's 34 is because it's going to be, you know, I'm just going to, I need some space to write. Make some space here. The reason it's 34 ATP is because it is going to create 2 ATP from the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle, which is its other name, depending on which one we use. So it's going to spit out 2 ATP from the Krebs. Then it will go through and spit out 32 ATP from the electron transport chain. Okay, so it'll spit out 32 more ATP. So from that single sugar molecule, I got 36 to 38. Well, it depends on who you ask. We'll say 36. You get from that one sugar molecule, you get about 36 ATP. And then our byproducts here are also going to be a little bit of CO2 and a little bit of water. And those are our byproducts, right? Oh, I forgot to put oxygen in there. And by the way, the mitochondria requires oxygen. So, oh, I need more space to write stuff. Gah. So glucose goes in. Right, glucose goes in here, spits out some ATP, lactic acid, and oxygen is going to go in here as well. And there we go. So one molecule of sugar goes into the fluid portion of the cell, and it spits out some ATP and some lactic acid. That lactic acid goes into the mitochondria, and it adds some oxygen, and it will spit out 2 ATP in the Krebs cycle and 32 ATP in the electron transport chain. Then you've got some byproducts left over. Your cell needs to exhale CO2, which is carbon dioxide, and needs to get rid of a little bit of water as a byproduct. Does that make sense?
It's a little complicated because start with something too simple.
It's very complicated. But you know what? Honestly, Soraya, this isn't even the day that we're teaching this stuff. We're gonna spend like a full like 2 hours on this in a couple of days. Like we're gonna it's gonna be very clear by the time I'm done with you. But yes, if you got it on the first, I mean, if you get it on the first try, guys, you're doing really well. Ask Charlie. Charlie, we talked about this stuff, 6 weeks ago. We talk about this every single module. It always comes back. So that's sugars. Let's go ahead and look at fats next. Oh, I got my notes in the wrong order. So lipids, which is the scientific name for fats, right? Lipids are technically fats are individual fatty acids. Lipids are when they're all held together, but your lipids are your fats, your fat-like substances, oils, cholesterol, phospholipids. All of those things are technically under the category of lipids. And so the most common one that we're going to talk about are your dietary fats. These are more commonly referred to as triglycerides. You've probably heard of triglycerides before if you talk about your cholesterol levels, right? And so when we look at fats, there's actually a couple different versions of those as well. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you've basically got different types of fats in the same way that you've got different types of carbohydrates. So before we had monosaccharides, we have disaccharides, we have polysaccharides. Whoops, I put my bank app. Well, we've also got fat classifications. We've also got 3 main categories of fats as well. I need a good chart. Where is it? There we go. And technically 4, but really 3. So you have got saturated fat, which means that these are fats that form a fairly straight line. And so because of that, they're able to stack really efficiently, which is why they are solid at room temperature. The marbling found on meat, butter, which is solid at room temperature, coconut oil, which is solid at room temperature, right? Those are all examples of saturated fats, right? But then you've also got, we're going to skip this one. We've also got unsaturated fats. Unsaturated fats are liquid at room temperature. So olive oil, canola oil, peanut oil, all of these are monounsaturated fats. And then we've got polyunsaturated fats, which are, just like unsaturated monos. They're just a little bit more complex. These are things like soybean oils or corn oil, or even like the fatty material found in like fish, the oily stuff that you see on a fish. That is your polyunsaturated. So mono means that there is one little kink. And poly means that there are multiple kinks, right? So saturated, mono, and polyunsaturated, okay? Now, you do have 1/4 type here, which does not really count. This is your trans fats. These are the devil. These are exceptionally unhealthy for you. So these are very, very unhealthy fats that are going to be found in things like margarine, puff pastries, like chicken pie, like, processed foods, right? And you really do not want to have any of this in your diet if you can avoid it. You want to have as little trans fat as possible. This literally this is not only does it increase your risk for heart disease, but it also is like a very poor source of energy. So those are your different types of fats that we've got. And your body can use fats to produce energy as well. I kept it open. Now, if I wanted to use fat as an energy source, because your body can use your body can use proteins, fats, or carbs, but it prefers to use glucose. Glucose is your body's favorite energy source. But your body can use fat. It basically just bypasses the glycolysis part, and it goes straight to the mitochondria. And it spits out ATP in this little process over here. That's how keto diets actually work. Keto diets rely on using this as a fuel source instead of this. We'll talk more about that in later classes when I get into fat production, but basically your body goes through this process called beta oxidation, where it splits up your fats in order to go through the process of metabolism. And then you've also got cholesterol. Cholesterol is also part of the fat conversation. Cholesterols are actually how your body synthesizes hormones. So you're going to find cholesterol in your diet, in your fat, and your body is going to use that cholesterol to convert it into your hormones. So cholesterol is a very vital, important part of our diet, and we need to make sure we're getting enough cholesterol. But your body can synthesize cholesterol. So the problem is we get a lot of cholesterol in our diet, and then we have too much of it, and our body can only make so many hormones. So then that cholesterol ends up staying in your bloodstream, and it parks itself on your blood vessels. That's where we really start to run into problems, because you start to see stuff like this. So if you start having too much cholesterol running throughout your body, particularly the bad type of cholesterol, it starts to build up on the inside of your blood your blood vessels, right? And so it starts building up on the walls and building up on the walls until eventually it blocks the whole thing. And now blood cannot pass through your blood vessel, and that can lead to a blood clot, a heart attack, stroke, any of those things. So we want to make sure that we have cholesterol in our diet, but we don't want to have too much of it. We'll talk more about that as well later. For today, I just need you to know what fats and what carbohydrates are. Lastly, you've got proteins. Proteins are big, complex chains of amino acids. An amino acid looks just like a carbohydrate molecule, but it's got a little bit of extra nitrogen attached to it. And so when you attach a whole bunch of amino acids together, they form a protein. And in your diet, there's things that are complete proteins and there's things that are incomplete proteins. Complete proteins contain all of your essential amino acids. Remember I mentioned anytime you hear the word essential in biology, it means it's essential that you eat it, right? So these are the amino acids that your body cannot make, and you have to consume them. Incomplete proteins are missing one of those essential amino acids, okay? One or more of them. So let me show you what that looks like.
One question, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you say complete proteins are what the body doesn't produce?
Hopefully, I might have said, I hope I didn't say that. Other way around. So complete proteins are proteins that have all of the amino acids. Incomplete proteins is missing one of the essential amino acids. So you need to make sure that if you eat a complete protein, you are getting that amino acid from somewhere else, and it can make a complete protein. So if you eat like meat, animal products are always complete proteins. If you are consuming part of an animal's body, their body assembled all the amino acids together, which means it's a complete protein. Eggs, chicken, steak, milk, all of those are all complete proteins. Incomplete proteins are when you find protein in like rice or beans or pasta, bread, even like vegetables, which have little bits of protein in them. Those have protein, but they're missing one or more pieces of the amino acids. So if you were to eat broccoli for, this is really weird, but let's say you ate only broccoli for a full week. You didn't eat anything else except broccoli. And you're like, broccoli's got protein in it. Yes, broccoli does have protein in it, but it is an incomplete protein. So it's missing, your body would get some amino acids, but it wouldn't get all of them, which means your body cannot make new proteins because it's missing one of its ingredients. Does that make sense?
Yes, I got it.
So how do you make so does that mean you need to be a meat eater? Do you have, does that mean vegetarians aren't getting enough protein? No. As a vegetarian, you just need to make sure that you are pairing your proteins up effectively. Because what you can do is you can create a complete protein by eating 2 incomplete proteins that complement each other. So take a look right here, right? Actually, that's not the chart I want. Hold on. I need a picture. There we go. So legumes, right? Beans. They're missing tryptophan and methionine, right? So they're missing these 2 amino acids. Grains like rice, they have those, but they're missing these 2 right here, right? So if you eat beans plus rice, they combine together and they fill in the gaps, and now you've got a complete protein. So you do not need to be a meat eater. You can be vegan, you can be vegetarian, and still get plenty of protein and get a full amino acid profile. You know, there's no reason you can't be on a plant-based diet. Personally, I think it's harder. So, you know, I am not a vegan or a vegetarian. I'm definitely a meat eater. But there's no reason that, you know, a lot of people have this misconception that like vegetarians or vegans, they don't get enough protein. But that's totally untrue. You can get plenty of protein as a vegan. It's not even hard, especially today when we have all this like food substitute stuff. It's easier than ever. So then we've got our vitamins. These are the first part of the micronutrients. So micronutrients are needed in small amounts, right? Did I go in the wrong order again? God dang it.
you jump from macronutrients.
What's it? Yeah, I did. I got vitamins down here and minerals.
So we want to see micronutrients, or we want to jump to vitamins?
Oh, no. Vitamins are a micronutrient. So micronutrients, there's 2 types, right? Like go back to my first chart here. Micronutrients, you've got you've got vitamins and you've got minerals. I will say your notes, they go minerals first. They should go vitamins first. But vitamins, what those are, you've got 2 categories here, right? So I'm actually going to go back to my chart here. So vitamins, you've got 2 versions. You have got fat soluble and you have got water soluble. Okay, so there's 2 different categories of vitamins. And so they're organic compounds. They actually look kind of similar to proteins, vitamins do, but they're smaller and they're a little bit different looking. And so your body can't make vitamins by itself. It has a really hard time making its own vitamins, but it needs vitamins to do stuff, which means you need to get it in food, right? That's why they are an essential nutrient. So the 2 main categories, like I said, you've got fat soluble, which are vitamins A, D, E, and K. Remember ADEC, right? And then your water soluble vitamin is your B complex and vitamin C. So vitamin C is a water soluble, and you're like vitamin B6, vitamin B12, B4, B2, B1, all of those are water soluble vitamins. Now, what do I mean when I say fat soluble versus water soluble? Well, basically it's just how your body moves those around, right? So fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K assist in metabolism, and they also help your minerals, which are up here, get absorbed more effectively. And then water soluble vitamins assist in your metabolism and they help your immune system, right? So fat soluble vitamins, they need to be, they can't travel on their own throughout your body. You can't get your fat soluble vitamins from point A to point B without helping them. They travel in fat. So fat helps them get carried to where they need to go. And then fat also helps them dissolve and get broken down. So this is what's kind of funny. You know, sometimes people will make like smoothies, right? They'll like put a bunch of fruit and a bunch of vegetables in a smoothie and they'll blend it all up and they'll drink it. And it's packed full of vitamins and minerals and nutrients. But what's kind of funny is sometimes those vitamins don't actually get absorbed by the body because vegetables and fruits, they don't have any fat in them. So I just tell my clients, I'm like, if you're going to drink like smoothies, if you're going to get into like the whole smoothie thing, pour a tablespoon of olive oil in there. Get some healthy, like good fats in there as well. And that can actually help you get more of those vitamins into your bloodstream. And it's a really good tip, or eat it with like a handful of almonds. That'll help too. You know, something that's really fatty, walnuts, almonds, whatever. But getting those into your body is important because you need them to get in with fat molecules. That's why they are fat soluble. And guess what? How does water soluble get in? They use water. So your B vitamins and vitamin C, they travel thanks to water, right? Here's some good sources of these vitamins. You don't have to worry about this, by the way. This will come up in later classes in much better versions than this. But you can find A in like liver, fish, milk, butter, things like that. D is going to be found in things that are exposed to like ultraviolet light, so like egg yolks, fish oils, and milk. You're also going to get tons of vitamin D by going out into the sun. That's why this one's referred to as the sunshine vitamin. So if you want to get vitamin D, go for a walk. Vitamin E, cereals, vitamin K, leafy greens. Your B vitamins, you're going to get from a lot of different protein sources, eggs, meats, cereals, and things like that. And then, look at this, liver. Blah, I hate liver, but I grew up eating a lot of liver. But it's a great source of B vitamins. And then vitamin C, you're going to find in a lot of like citrus fruits, oranges, tangerines, things like that, tomatoes, and then potatoes and vegetables as well. So why do you need, like I said, fat soluble vitamins aid in a lot of like physiologic processes. Water soluble vitamins, they aid in like metabolism. So earlier when we were talking about like this Krebs cycle in particular, right? Like the Krebs cycle here, you know, it's really complicated, but it uses B vitamins to do all of its processes. So, you know, there's probably going to be some vitamin B stored in this mitochondria in order to spit out some energy as well. So it uses B vitamins to help. Then we've got our minerals here. Minerals are inorganic elements. So this is what's kind of cool. All of this stuff until now has been made of proteins, fats, or carbs, right? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. You're right. Those are all what we call organic elements, but your minerals are not. Your minerals are literally like metal that you find out in the world.
I got a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead. What's up, Noel?
What's that about? What's the difference between trans fat? Like when they put in a bag of chips, they say trans fat.
Yeah.
And other fat. What is that?
Yeah. So we were talking about fats earlier, right? You've got saturated and you've got unsaturated, and then you've got trans fats. Trans fats are the ones that I tell my client. You know, you've heard me talk about this, Noel. Noel, you know, I don't like to tell people what not to eat. I really don't like that approach to dieting. I think that like telling someone not to eat makes them think about eating it. And then, you know, it's a bad way to diet. So many diets tell you like, don't eat this, don't eat that, don't eat this, right? I would much rather tell someone what to eat rather than tell them what not to eat. But my exception to that rule is trans fats. Guys, do not eat trans fats. They are very, 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 very bad for you. Not only do they clog your arteries on their own, they also destroy the good stuff that cleans your arteries. So they're clogging it and killing your good stuff. They are as bad as it comes. And what they are, to answer your question, is they were once a good fat. So when you take like peanut oil, right, which is a mono unsaturated fat, that's a good fat, right? And you superheat it, you bring it up to really high temperatures. What happens is it starts pulling hydrogen out of the air, and it takes that little kink, right? Remember, they got that little like bend in them, and that super heat straightens them out. And now they can stack together like crazy and form like a solid, which is what you see on like, you know, fried foods that are all like, you know, they're crispy and hard. That's the trans fats that you're like crunching into. And that's why they're so bad for you. Like they took a good fat and they converted it into a really, 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 really bad fat using super high temperatures so that it absorbs hydrogen. The other name for trans fats, Noel, is that they're called hydrogenated fats. And it means that it's a fat that has absorbed extra hydrogen and it screws up all of your body's processes. So you want to avoid fried foods as much as possible. French fries are the worst. And I know they're delicious. Like, I get it, you know? But fried foods are really bad for you. Question? Sorta?
No, I'm fine.
Oh, I thought I heard you.
But what when they have on there on the chest say moderation, serving size. When you talk about serving size,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Is it too much? That means you every serving size in the bag is per person, or is they saying, you know?
So every serving size is going to be different. So every serving size is going to be different. It is what the company assumes someone will eat per serving. And all of the numbers on the nutrition label will be related to the serving size. So you'll say here, so this is like a bag of pretzels, right? So the serving size that they are assuming is that people are only going to eat 3 pretzels. Yeah, right. But that's what they say. So it is 110 calories for every serving. For every 3 pretzels, it's, 1/2 gram of total fat, 0 trans fat, 23 grams of carbs, 2 grams of fiber, 3 grams of protein. But if you eat the entire bag, which it says 3 servings per container, so there are 9 pretzels in a bag, that means that you're actually getting 1.5 grams of fat, 69 grams of carbs, 6 grams of fiber, 9 grams of protein. So the serving size is going to be different depending on what food you're looking at, right? So it says the serving size is 2/3 of a cup. This is cereal for sure. So this is probably like a thing of cereal or maybe granola. And so the serving size is 2/3 of a cup. There are 8 servings in the bag, right? But that's what serving size is. All right, so minerals, like I said, these are inorganic elements, and they're going to split up into 2 small categories as well. Your minerals are going to divide into 2 different categories here. Now, when I talked about vitamins, we said that vitamins, you have fat soluble and water soluble. They're chemically different from each other. Minerals, every single solitary mineral is different from every other mineral because they're literally just like metals found out in the world. Iron, calcium, sodium, potassium, phosphorus, chlorine, right? Magnesium, molybdenum, all of those are all different minerals. But we do classify them in categories that are, I don't know. I don't think that these categories are important personally, but there are major minerals and trace minerals. What that means, major are the minerals that you need to eat more than 100 milligrams per day to get the recommended amount. And trace minerals are ones that you need less than 100 per day to get the recommended amount. So, fat soluble and water soluble are actually different from each other. Major and trace are, they just means how much of them you need. So this is kind of a weird thing in the world of nutrition. But calcium, chlorine, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, sulfur, chromium, cobalt, I forgot cobalt, copper, fluorine, iodine, iron, manganese, selenium, and zinc. They all do really different things inside the body. They're all totally unique from each other. Zinc is my favorite. By the way, your immune system uses zinc to, when you're sick, you have a cold, they take a cough drop and it says it's got zinc in it. It'll help you get over your cold faster. Maybe it will. But what zinc does is your immune cells, what they do is they like shimmy up next to like a virus and they make like, do you guys remember that? Sorry, I'm giving you one last weird fun fact for the day. T1000. Do you remember the Terminator, the T1000? And he made the, where's his arm? He makes the arm blade thing. He does this with his arms, right? your immune cells actually do that. And they use it, they make little zinc, like stabby arms, and they stab like a virus with zinc, and then that marks it for execution. And then another cell comes along later and eats it. And that's why zinc's my favorite. I think that's really cool. But there's all your different minerals that you need. And lastly, like I said, you'll notice we're almost done with our PowerPoint here, and NASA never talked about water, which drives me crazy. So I got to talk about water. Water is the most essential nutrient. It is responsible for cooling your body. It aids in metabolism. None of these vitamins, none of these minerals, none of these carbs, proteins, or fat, none of it can move around your body without water. So water is super, super, super important. And it aids in like metabolic processes by making it easier to move from point A to point B. It's a quick source of hydrogen. It's a quick source of oxygen. You absolutely need water in your diet. Guys, you should be drinking about 3.7 liters per day. Ladies, you should be drinking about 2.7 liters per day. So guys, that's close to a gallon. It's just a little bit under. And for women, it's about 3/4 of a gallon every single day. Lots and lots and lots of, and if you're working out, guess what? You need even more. So it's super, super important to make sure you're getting plenty of water.
Yeah, I have a question. For example, there are persons when they are training, they start drinking water. I know they needed the water, but when I was practice exercise before, always they tell us wait until you finish your exercise. You know you want to have a pain. That's what it is.
I'm sorry. I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit. Can you ask me one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Before, people wasn't drinking the water when they do the exercise. It was when they finish the exercise. Now I see people is drinking water when they are doing the exercise. For me, it is, if I do that, I will have a pain in the stomach.
Oh, you get a side ache? Yeah, that's okay. Honestly, it is recommended to get water in the middle of your workout, because then you never make, it ensures that you're not going to run out, but if you got plenty of water before your workout and you're getting plenty of water after your workout, you're going to be fine. It's okay. You're not going to see too much decreased performance. But you may, like, if you ever get dehydrated during like your workout or during an athletic event, you might end up cramping up. But honestly, I've known plenty. So that's a really common thing. I know lots of clients who are like, I can't drink while I'm working. I can't eat. I can't drink while I'm working out. I have to wait until I'm done. That's a really common thing for a lot of people. If you don't cramp up, if you don't have any problems, you're fine. Don't feel like you have to do something that makes you uncomfortable. You're fine without it, as long as you're not having any. Now, if you're having problems and you're like, oh, I cramp up every time I work out, and it's like, but I don't like drinking. It's like, well, okay, you either get to keep cramping up or you get to,
Yeah, I heard what you said, but yeah, for me, no, I can't do exercise and drink water at the same time. No, well.
Yeah, that's fine. As long as you don't have any problems, that's fine. That's like me, like, I always tell people I'm a big fan of barefoot technique running. I like toe striking rather than heel striking, but a lot of people heel strike and they don't have any problems. So it would be super weird for me to be like, you got to run my way. Nah, you do if you're not having, if it's not broken, don't fix it,
Okay.
Yeah, so don't worry about that. You're okay. But, tell your clients to drink water. All right, so summarizing everything up, digestion is the process of breaking down foods and absorbing it. You've got the ingestion, which is getting it in, propulsion, which is moving it, mechanical processing, which is chewing stuff up and tearing it apart, digestion, which is chemical breaking stuff down, secretion, which is putting stuff in to help break stuff down, absorption, which is getting it into your bloodstream, and excretion, which is getting it out of the body. Your stomach is going to process that using all kinds of different gastric juices, and then it is going to move it into your small intestine where it will actually be absorbed. Your large intestine will do just a final little bit of absorption. as it pulls out like a lot of water and a little bit of the vitamins and a little bit of the minerals. And that is that. Any questions for today? Comments or concerns? You guys made it through day 2.
Only my concern is the test.
So again, all right. So not that question. I will cover the test in just a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anything about the lecture? Any questions or comments about the lecture?
No, that's fine. Only it is when you showing the mitochondria or the cells or something, and it start put it something that the ATP or this is like oh my god.
I know that's really good. That's why this whole class is dedicated just to that. So I mean the whole like 12 days. So don't worry. It will become clearer and clear. We're going to do it. It's going to get very clear over the next coming days. You don't need to be an expert today.
Okay.
All right. So I do want to show you how to do your homework. So today, guys, I want you to go to Canvas. We got our first piece of homework today. This is going to be homework number 1. And what you're going to do when you go to Canvas, you are going to see, you know what? I'm going to do it on my student Canvas. Let's see if I can remember. I can't remember. I can't remember how to log in as I have a fake student account. And I'm trying to remember how what was it? All right, so here's my student account. This is what it's going to look like to you guys. So you're going to click on your thing here, and you will see here's day 2, right? So you're going to click on day 2. You will see the video. This is the old video. I'm going to replace this with today's video.
All right.
Hey, it's my new apartment. And then you're going to see here's the PowerPoint. Here's the notes. By the way, here's a hard copy of the homework. If you guys ever want to print out hard copies, I do have a hard copy here. This is what it normally looks like at Real Sochi. These are normally what our homeworks look like when I had everybody, used to have them fill out in paper. But then down here is a link, and it says, click here to take PFT 105, homework number 1. It covers PowerPoints 1 through 2. So I'm going to click on homework 1. I'm going to say, take the quiz. And you'll notice there's all 15 questions here. So I'm going to give you guys a freebie here. You were talking about metabolism. All right. Here we go. The organelles present in a human cell that contain enzymes for the production of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. Mitochondria, right? There's a freebie, guys. That one's on me. So you're going to hit the submit. Actually, that one's on Soroya because she said it before I did. So you're going to hit submit, and that's going to put in your homework, okay?
Okay.
So that's how you...
One question, you were in home, and after go to the day 2, and after, okay, when they say, yeah, I know, and this is for the test, but when they say, for example, homework 02 PowerPoint, what is that?
So the reason it says that it's PowerPoints 1 through 2 is because if you want to study in order to pass, like if you want to study, you're going to, I'm assuming you download. I'm going to go back to day 1 here. So I go to day 1 and I click on PowerPoint 1. So here's PowerPoint 1. So let's say I want to study it before I decide to do my homework. Or maybe I want to have it open next to me while I'm doing my homework, right? I would have PowerPoint 1, and I would open PowerPoint 2. So that's what it means. It means that the content on the homework is from PowerPoints 1 and 2, nothing else.
Okay.
So you won't find any questions from any other spot. So it's telling you what to study in order to, pass the homework. So if I go to the assignments tab, I can find it here as well. Come on now. My internet's being slow. So I can go to the assignments tab and I can find it here. It says PFT 105 homework 1. But the problem is what I don't like about using the assignments tab is you can see here's 2, here's all the other ones. And it's like, I don't want you to get confused and take the wrong one, because then you have to make sure you're in the right class. I mean, I will always put the right class at the top. Like, so right, you did this one. You went to PFT 102. You went down here to this one right here. That's the one that was confusing you earlier, this morning when we were talking. But this one is the one that's going out today. So I don't want you guys to pay attention to any of this. And unfortunately, I can't hide these. Canvas won't let me hide these other assignments. So they're all up here already. And that only leads to confusion. Same thing if you go to the quizzes tab. And the quizzes tab is
PFT 102, what we want to do, right?
You're going to do PFT 102 in 6 months. Right now, you're doing PFT 105.
105, okay.
So, but see, look at this. This here's 100. That's the fine. This is all out of order. The quizzes tab is even worse. Stay away from this tab. It's only going to confuse you. I really wish that I could get rid of this. Yeah, what's up, Andres?
So are you going to upload a new video, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been recording today's lesson. I recorded all of this, so that this version of the video is going to replace the old one.
Okay.
If you guys ever do want to watch the old ones, they're up on the YouTube channel. I didn't take them down, so you guys can watch the old ones if you want to, but I don't recommend it. Cool. So yeah, so guys, when you're doing your homework, everybody try to get this done today. Study, you got a couple hours, study up, but you're going to go to the main page, go to home,
don't touch your finger, word.
PFT 105, click on day 2, and scroll to the bottom and click this to take your homework. It'll link you right there. Yeah, other question, what's up?
By what time do you want the homework in by?
Tomorrow, anytime by tomorrow. I'm not going to put like a super hard date on it, especially because I've got new students who are probably still joining us. But if you get behind, it really starts to play with you. And remember, I'm not giving you guys homework just for the sake of giving you homework. I'm giving it to you. This will help you understand, this is meant to help you. It's homework that is useful, not busy work. I hate busy work. Anybody who knows me outside of school or just in my life knows that I cannot stand doing pointless stuff. So this homework really is meant to help.
Got it.
Any other questions? Soraya, you know how to find the homeworks now?
Yeah, okay, let me do it. I want to check it again.
Cool. And I almost forgot to mention, most important concept. You can take your homework as many times as you want. Tests, you only get to take once, but homework, you can take it as many. So let's say you get like an 80% on the first one and you were like, oh, I'm not happy with 80%. Start it again, take it again. It will average the scores out. So if you get an 80 on the first time and you get 100 on the second time, you will average to a 90%. I do not want anybody in here leaving homework below passing. If you leave your score at 60% and then you complain about like not passing a class or something, no sympathy.
Okay.
You have
so we can make it many times what we need.
Many times. The tests you can only take once. But remember I talked about this yesterday, your tests, right? And that's going to go out on day 6. It's going to be 30. Your homeworks are always 15 questions. Your tests are 30 questions, and 15 of the questions they're the same questions from your homework. So I'm going to pull like 7 or 8 questions from homework 1. I'm going to pull 7 or 8 questions from homework 2, and those are going to be back in your middle test. So if you do your homework 1 and your homework 2 over and over and over and over and over again, and you get it memorized, you can get 50% on the tests. You are being rewarded for practice. That's why I really like this system. I want you guys to be rewarded. The more you take your homework, the higher the score is going to get. And it ensures that you're going to do well on the test.
So I get confused again. I'm sorry. But you say, if I go at the day 2, wanna be the notes and the homework,
mm-hmm.
and to click there to make the test.
Yeah.
How I can stay repeating and repeating? It's only one time the test, right?
Tests only once. Let me show you. I'll show you right now. So if I go to homework 1, I'm just going to click submit. I'm going to click submit here. Remember, I only answered 1 question correctly. So now it's going to say, hey, you got 1 out of 15.
Yeah,
right?
okay. Uh-huh.
So now I'm going to say, take it. I can take it again. So actually, I'm going to go home. I mean, I could just click it there, but I'm going to go home, go back to here, go down to homework 1, and I say, take the quiz again. And this time I'll do you a solid, guys. I'll give you another freebie.
Yeah, no, I understand what you say. So if I answer all the questions, wanna be to do it again, the homework or what?
So remember earlier I would talk about like the pyruvate is converted to what in the absence of oxygen? That's going to be lactic acid, right?
Yeah.
So pyruvic acid, which is actually what the lactic acid becomes. I kind of skipped a step when I was explaining it, but it's lactic acid, right? So there we go. Now watch, I go down here and I click submit. I have 13 unanswered questions. I got 2 more right this time, right? So now I've got a score of 2 out of 15. But you see how this says right here? My kept score.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I got 1 the first time and I got 2 this time. The average is 1.5. So that means that currently my current score is going to be 1.5. So now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to answer the same question. Well, I don't want to give that away, but
no, but okay. So and then suppose I finish and I get the 15 questions correct, because my point is I want to print first, or I want to write it first, all the questions and answer by myself. And after, when I go to the computer, I want to check it, or I want to put it the right question, the right answer. And in the end, I want to submit, and when I get when submit for the first time, for example, I want to get the score, the 15, for example.
So you're not gonna, it won't reveal the answers until you submit it for the first time. So you're gonna have to take your homework the first time naturally, and you'll get whatever score you get, which is why you want to, study your notes and stuff. But then, yeah, if you want to practice outside, and you copy all the, you use the answers and then you use those to study further and like practice those answers. The next time you take your test, you can put in a perfect score. So let's say you got 70% the first time and you got 100% the second time, it will average out to 85%. And then if you do it again, you get 100 again, it'll average from 85 to 92.5. So it'll never get to 100 because you can't average out to 100, but like, it'll go from let's say 70% up to 85%, up to 92.5, up to times
yeah, I got it. It's like you have one wrong one.
Yeah.
You will never want to get 100%.
Yeah. So the more times you get 100.
But the more than you practice, you want to have high score. And what the score you want to consider it for?
Oh, try to get a passing grade, 70% or higher. Honestly, guys, it takes a few, once you've got the answers, you only have to do it a few times.
Yeah. I understand when when I'm a study, I try to understand the question and the answer.
Yes.
But it's important to me too to understand how you wanna consider the score for the punctuation.
So I will take your final averaged out score.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, like here it says the KEP score, right, was 1.5.
Uh-huh.
Oh, shoot. Hold on.
No, it's okay. I understand what
so 1.5, right, out of 15, which is very bad.
Yeah, exactly.
But that would be a 10%. So I would give that person 10%. But remember, the first time we only got one question right. So they would have gotten 5%.
Okay.
So yeah, I take the final, however many times you practice it, I'm gonna take that.
Yeah, because now I see the other question. I say, this is not the questions I was making solution before.
Yeah, well, it's okay to get them wrong, right? But you want to make sure you get them memorized so that you don't get them wrong on the test, which will be on Monday.
Yeah, because I was thinking, okay, the teacher is teaching something. Maybe it is important, but doesn't have sense to have a questions doesn't have we are not seeing in the
class. So make sure you don't. Yeah, make sure you only go to the tabs on days 2, 4, 6, and 8 and 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions, guys? Anything else you guys are worried about?
No, nothing else. Nothing for now.
All right.
I got a question.
Yeah, what's up, Noel?
Do this count as a whole class, or do I still got to come in for the late one?
You missed a pretty good chunk, man. I'm gonna need you to come to the evening one.
Well, I asked questions. No, I asked questions.
I love that.
And I participated.
Oh, you certainly did, which I very much appreciate. But you missed. I really want. I know you like this nutrition stuff. You missed a good chunk of it. I think you like the beginning. I think you should come to tonight. I want to teach you about like how digestion works, because you got to the nutrition part. You came in right during the nutrition part, but you missed the digestive part.
Yeah. What do you think about this haircut?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. You're looking sharp, sir. All right, man. I'm gonna hit the old record button here and end the recording. See you guys tomorrow.